back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys, so I'm here today to review two books that I'm very excited to talk about because I've really enjoyed both of these. The first one I want to talk about is Paternus, which is by Dyrk Ashton, and the second one I want to talk about is another John Wyndham book, and this is The Midwich Cuckoo. Now, you may have heard of this author because he's been doing the rounds a little bit on BookTube. I know that Connor from Connor O'Brien has reviewed this, and a couple other people who I'm friends with on Goodreads have also read and enjoyed it, and I'm definitely excited to say that I joined that bandwagon when I started reading this. This is a story that focuses on two main characters, Fee and Zeke. Fee is short for Fiona, and she works in a hospital, which is how she knows her friend Zeke, who also works in the hospital. She is kind of like a carer, and Zeke is someone who comes in and does music sessions with some of the live-in patients who are there. So they're both friends, and they've kind of been casually dating when we pick up the story, and they're not quite sure how they feel about each other. Fee in particular is getting a bit of the cold feet syndrome, whereas Zeke is kind of ramping up his love interest and definitely getting more into her and wants to tell her. However, just as he's plucking up the courage to do so, things go to hell, and I mean literally there and back, because things from every area of mystery, magic, fairy tale, folk tale, anything you can think of, mythology, any of that, all of it is in this book. Literally everything you could think of. So we have divine beings, we have fairy tale characters, we have characters who are gods, we have different gods from different religions. There is pretty much everything, and it all starts appearing at this hospital where the two of them work because they want these creatures to steal a patient, and the patient happens to be one of the patients that Fee and Zeke look after. So we follow their adventure once all of these creatures start attacking the hospital and they don't know what on earth to do because they're just regular humans who didn't even know magic was a thing. But it is, and it's basically the invasion of the Firstborn. Firstborn are all of these things, these magical beings, creatures, divinities, deities, whatever, and all of them are included under the Firstborn title, or they are a descendant of a Firstborn. So this world is pretty intimidating once you see the magical side of it. Most humans go through life pretty happy, they don't realise it's there, and they don't have a problem, but unfortunately our two humans have got pretty involved. And we follow them on this adventure as they try and rescue the patient who they've been looking after. After that point happens, we get to see them in completely crisis situations, and I really enjoyed it because it is an urban fantasy, it's mixing real world with magic, and it does a really good job of that actually. I'm not a huge fan of urban fantasy, although I do seem to be reading more of them recently, and it's a solid beginning to a series that I think could be really, really strong. What I love about this is the imagination, just everything you can imagine that is scary and creepy and horrible from any kind of nightmare or anything is pretty much in here. I felt like the author just shoved everything he could think of in, but he did it in a way that works, not just like a cluttered mess. It is actually a good solid story underneath all the mayhem that goes on in the story. So I really liked that kind of craziness and the way that you're feeling compelled through the story. There's always action, there's always adventure, the characters are always being faced with something, and even when they're not battling with these demons and creatures, they're kind of battling with themselves and their own emotions and how they really feel about one another. And I like that a lot, and I think Dyrk did a great job of bringing it all together and tying it up nicely with some big surprises and reveals at the end of the book too. So I'm definitely keen to find out what is going to happen next when the sequel comes out, I think later this year. I really enjoyed this. I do think it's a great mashup of all sorts of things, and it's definitely different from most things I've read, so I'd highly recommend it, and I think that you guys would love it. But I ended up giving this a solid 4 stars, and I think loads of you would love it, so do go and check it out and let me know if you plan to read it because I'd love to hear your thoughts. The next one I want to talk about is The Midwich Cuckoos by John Wyndham. This book is one that I picked up because I'm on a John Wyndham binge, and I'm really happy that I am because every single book I've read by him so far has been good, and this is no exception. This focuses on the sleepy town of Midwich, which is in the middle of the country, just kind of dozing away. Not a lot goes on there. It's very small, it's very quaint, it's very twee, and just people kind of go there to chill, have a very relaxed life. That's about it. we follow a couple who are from Midwich, but they aren't actually there when the event happens, and the event is called Day Out. And Day Out happens when a mysterious object comes in, lands, and everyone in the village and within a certain distance of the village suddenly falls unconscious for no discernible reason. No one really knows why. They can't get into the village because whenever they go through this invisible barrier, they also fall unconscious. So it's a bit of a panic, but it's being kept quite quiet from the media. And later on, we find out that a day later, everyone wakes up, everything seems fine. Doesn't seem like cause for panic, but definitely seems like something fishy is going on. And that's exactly what it is. Later on, we find out that a couple months later, all of the women who are of childbearing age in this village are suddenly, mysteriously, magically pregnant. Most of them are in happy marriages, so it's fine, but some of them are not, and some of them are virgins, so it's completely madness to them that they have suddenly got pregnant. And we follow the town itself as it decides what to do about this complete disaster, craziness that's going on around them. Do they tell people? Do they not? They don't want to be looked upon as freaks and labelled as a freakish town, so they do their best to keep it quiet, and we follow what happens from the point of view of this couple who were away at the time of the event, so they are not affected as much as the other villagers by what happened. They kind of just can see from an insider and an outsider point of view. They're not experiencing everything, but they definitely are involved, and I like that a lot. I think the detached style of writing was good for this because it reads like you're not quite in the story, but you're observing it in a creepy way like most people would in a situation like this. And I think this story really deals with people who are different and trying to see how you can acclimatise them to the situation around you. These babies, when they're born, are quite different to the norm, and they have some incredible powers, and they definitely cause a lot of problems for the people of this village. And I found that it was really good to see what happens when an alien invades your private space, your home. What do you do? How can you possibly cope and deal with that? And that's what this story is all about. I really enjoyed it. I feel like, again, John Wyndham has done a great job of just making a quaint, twee sci-fi that is really good as a standalone. It felt very solid and very interesting, and I feel like all the characters were, again, people I was compelled to like and people that I found sympathy for, even though it's a very short book and it doesn't necessarily have as much length as a big epic fantasy. I still feel like I was connected to the characters, and I still feel like their plea and their plight was a problem for me, and I really enjoyed reading about it. So I definitely loved this. I think it was great. I'm certainly going to pick up more of his books. I think I'm just on that train forever until I finish everything by him now, and I loved it. So I gave this a 4.5 and I would thoroughly recommend it. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've read this or the other one I just spoke about, Paternus, in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.